Money buys a man silence for a time. A bolt through the heart buys it forever. Hello and welcome to the Friday Fantasy Show from the Bottled Imp.
Exploring the realms of fantasy.
My name is Ken Boyter and today we're going to be taking a look at this, which is back to front. Let's do that again. Hey! This, which is Series 4 of Game of Thrones, brought to you by HBO, and this first aired in 2014, and most people now know that it's based on the George R.R. Martin series of novels, A Song of Ice and Fire. Now at the moment there's 7 novels that are out. They're due to be, there's 5. There's due to be 7, but George R. R. Martin has got waylaid. We've been waiting years now for the next novel, which he has said is coming out next year, 2018. Fingers crossed. We've got to a stage now where we're getting new material, I believe. I'm pretty sure that's the case, certainly in Series 5. But anyway, let's see. The setup is that everybody wants to be sitting on the Iron Throne. Is anyone any closer? Let's find out. Game of Thrones Series 4. What's the setup? Well, I'm going to try and do all of this without any spoilers, which is very difficult to do, but I feel when I watch something or I read something or I play a board game, I don't really want to know too much about it because I like all the surprises. Maybe we could do another series where we actually delve into the series and do some spoilers so we can really get into the meat of the story. But anyway, the overarching story is that there is an Iron Throne, and anybody who sits on the Iron Throne is the ultimate ruler of the 7 kingdoms of Westeros. The series way back 4 series ago, as in our reviews, starts, there is a king already on the throne, and then things goes a little bit wrong, and there's a bit of a power struggle. And therefore it's all about these supposed kings and queens that think that they should be ruling, they should be the ones that are on the Iron Throne, and they have not stopped fighting for it ever since. So that's kind of the broad setup. But Series 4, there's 10 episodes in each series, so now this is 40 hours worth of television. That's a lot of television to fill, that's a lot of story to get through. The books are very complex, they're huge tomes, at least 600, maybe 700, maybe even 1,000 pages, some of them long. They're very complex. So they have done a brilliant job in converting them. They've not really had to cut too much out because, 10 episodes, that's 10 hours per series to get through. And as you can imagine, what actually happens, yes, you've got the characters, yes, you've got the storylines, but each series does seem to have a stronger theme, and there are normally about 4 or 5 themes that run through each of them, and they differ. There are some that cross over, and there are some that maybe change, i.e. they'd be the same theme, but they take a slightly different look. Now, the themes in Series 4, I found that the strongest one was betrayal. It seemed like every single character was betraying everybody else. It was just, oh, okay, so now that's happened and they're betraying them. And so you've got families betraying families, you've got family members betraying other family members, which has been building. And so everything that's been building from 1 to 3, there does seem to be quite a lot of resolution in Series 4, and therefore as a viewer you do feel quite satisfied because you're thinking, yeah, this character can't keep this under wraps for long. You can feel like anger building up, and there of course there's different types of betrayal in there because people betray people for various different reasons. It could be money, it could be love, it could be resentment, it could be jealousy, it could be because they felt they weren't loved, so there was a lack of love. And so this theme, as I say, for me it felt like the strongest theme that ran through, so therefore you do get a lot of nuances within this theme. So I really like the way that they tackled this. They didn't just look at one type of betrayal. And if you've got royalty, because there's royalty obviously that starts betraying royalty, again I don't want to give too much away, but then that has bigger consequences. So you imagine if it's betrayal between friends or betrayal between enemies, it might just be on a small scale, so it could just involve 2 people. But of course, if you've got a family against a family, then yes, that's going to involve a handful of people. But if you've got royalty versus royalty, then of course that's going to involve communities. That's going to involve loyal people that are following you as leaders. And of course, if you've got loyalty, then and your leaders are saying, yes, we need to go and do this, and it's basically driven by betrayal, then obviously it's going to affect thousands of people, and hence why wars presumably start, sometimes because of betrayal. So for me, that was one of the strongest themes. There was also desire. I really looked at the characters in depth, and it was like all the characters seem to have a strong desire. And of course, there's many desires within each of us, and they can come and go and change and chop throughout the years. But there was a lot of strong desires, and again, what I liked about this was they didn't just take one desire. It wasn't just the desire of lust or desire of love. They looked at many desires. So they had revenge in there. They had destiny. There was that sort of feeling of there was a destiny about, so therefore if somebody thought that it was their destiny to do something, then that became their desire. There was loyalty. Obviously, if you are loyal, it can be so consuming. So all of these desires become so consuming to that person that everything else can, if you don't keep it in check, can be blotted out. And therefore, is it out of control? Does it start taking over you? And therefore you start doing things that you wouldn't normally do. And you might not be aware of that deep-seated desire, because that desire might have been planted in you years ago. And because you've been working to it and you've been aiming for this desire, it can really affect your decisions. So you might think you're quite a moral person, but because of this overarching desire, whatever it is, it could be lust, it could be money, it could be power, then you start thinking, that takes over and causes you to sort of become somebody other than you think you are. So again, it was really nuanced the way they dealt with that theme. There was also a theme of belonging, and that theme has run through all of the series as far as I'm concerned, where you've got that belonging. So you've got, and it starts off very small, on a small scale. Obviously, you've got the family unit. If you're born into a family, you'd like to belong. Obviously, if say you're in an orphanage, you'd still have that longing to belong somewhere. And therefore, if you haven't got a family unit, then you're looking for other places to belong. So it could be your community, it could be an orphanage, it could be... So for example, there's the Night's Watch, which is a band of criminals. So if you're a criminal, instead of death, you may get sent to the Night's Watch, which are people that guard this huge ice wall. So obviously, if you've seen series 1 to 3, you know what I'm talking about. But they try to enforce a sense of belonging, a sense of community. We are the Night's Watch. We are brothers. We've got your back. So again, it's not necessarily the family unit that is somewhere that you can belong. And all the characters have that sense of wanting to belong, and then sense of community, and therefore you've got the houses, these powerful houses that are all vying for the throne. And again, are you're either with us or you're not with us. If you're not with us, then you could be against us. There's that sort of loyalty and desire to belong somewhere. So obviously you've got that going on. Then you've also got war, and now war has, again, that's probably the main theme of the whole series, that power. And there's quite a lot of reasons why somebody would go to war, but one of them is obviously that power, that dominance, that somebody just very arrogantly says, I'm actually the rightful king or queen, and I'm the one that can lead people. People need me. I think it can be quite arrogant. But then not all leaders are like that. There is sometimes a desire to do good and actually to help people, and because you might have been born into a more fortunate position to other people. So obviously there are some people that want to become leaders and rulers from a good moral point of view. Probably not that many, but there is one, again, I don't want to give too many spoilers away, there is one of those leaders within Game of Thrones that wants to do that, as far as I can tell anyway. Plus, there's the going to war for survival. So it's not a power thing, it's not trying to grab land, it's nothing to do with that, it's survival. And again, I don't want to give too much away, but there's the wildlings, and they're basically fighting for their very existence. There's a bigger threat that's going to happen that they know about, and so they have gone to war. They're the free folk, they're the wildlings that live beyond the wall, where the Night's Watch want to protect, and they know of a greater threat. And so the people of Westeros, they don't really believe them that there's this greater threat, and they've always, there's been thousands of years these different types of free folk and their clans, so they all belong to a different type of clan. But this overwhelming desire for survival has banded them all together. So they've kind of put their differences aside to fight a bigger battle simply for their survival. So those, for me, those were the main themes that ran through, and I think that because they do it in such a nuanced way, such a complex, such an in-depth look at the themes, not just in this series, but all the series we've reviewed so far, that adds such a layer of complexity. Forget even just the characters and the storyline, just the themes and the way they deal with them, and they deal with them on a real micro, small scale, plus they deal on a bigger scale, on the macro. So it just adds that extra layer when they're really tackling these themes that bubble along and build and change. And the characterization, again, all the characters are complex, they've got all the desires, and it becomes really fascinating to watch their inner conflicts, because they get put into situations that are totally outside their comfort zones. Things change, war can change a lot in people's lives. So there's loads of characters that each need their own desires and their own inner conflicts dealt with. So the characterizations, they keep, they've carried on doing that right from the beginning of Series 1. The characterizations was at the forefront. And of course you've got the storylines, and the storylines, you probably know by now, having watched Series 1 to 3, that there's loads of twists, there's loads of changes, there's loads of things that happen that you think, what, I didn't expect that. Sometimes you might think that you can kind of guess what's going to happen, but then they just put a new twist in that totally blows your mind. And I remember reading the books, because I kind of read the books before I watched the TV series, and just be blown away by it, and actually having to reread pieces again to go, did that really happen? So because the storylines are, mysterious, if you like, you're not quite sure, unpredictable, and you genuinely feel like any character is in peril. So if somebody, is hanging off a mountainside, let's just say, for example, they genuinely could fall, and sometimes they do. They're not afraid, this isn't a spoiler really, they're not afraid of killing off characters. And so therefore, you do know that if two characters get into a fight, it's not always going to be the hero, if you like, that's going to survive. And that, to me, is a genius. It's a stroke of genius, because it keeps you watching, it keeps you intrigued. And of course, the personal stories, it's very, you can connect with them. They've got everyday hopes, love, their children. They want their best for their family. So there's something that you can just connect totally. And of course, fantasy levels, they've cranked up, because obviously now, the magic, because in Series 1, it was all very low level, the fantasy. Series 2 got more and more into it, the magic became more prominent. Series 3 again, and Series 4, we're seeing a lot of magic, we're seeing a lot more fantasy involved. And we also get to see more of the ice wall, which is amazing. So the CGI is brilliant, the production values are just exquisite, and the locations they choose are breathtaking. So for me, epic fantasy is all about that. It's all about those things, about the characterizations, the stories, you feel like you want to be in that world, you want to live there. And they don't just have sort of traditional sort of English medieval. They've got over in Essos, I think that's how you pronounce it, where you've got the mother of dragons. I don't think that's giving anything away. You've got Khaleesi, you've got this sort of more Mediterranean feel to it, very hot, very sultry locations as well. And then you've got the ice wall, so you've got the massive contrast between all of the locations that again add to that extra complexity. And they're in a way, they're a character in themselves, all the locations, so it's absolutely breathtaking. Series 4, for me, they've hit the nail on the head once again. They really make, like, you want to be involved, you care for the characters. Some you don't care for, obviously you really hate them, but again, I don't think there's any character that you feel, yeah, they're all right. You do invest in the characters, and for me, forget if it's fantasy or anything, that is the mark of a great TV series or, you know, a great book, great novel, great film. Series 4 totally lives up to expectations. I love the twists, so yeah, they've done another fantastic job. Can't wait for Series 5. Series 4 of HBO's Game of Thrones, yes, they've continued to do an amazing job. Thoroughly recommend it. This, by the way, isn't the sort of Series 4 cover. I bought this Series 1 to 4. Next time, obviously, we're going to be looking at Series 5. We have also done the Game of Thrones board game as well, and also the books 1 to 5. Now, hopefully, fingers crossed, the next book is coming out next year, and we'll obviously do a review of that. But until next time, thank you so much for watching. Remember to keep it unreal, especially if you live as a wildling.